Hi, I'm Maya Welford. I'm a Behavioural Finance Specialist and I'm from East London, but I'm currently living in Rockford. I really loved growing up in Tower Hamlets. So most of my childhood was spent in Bow. So really close to Roman Road. So every Saturday we'd be at Roman Road Market because my grandma had a stall there. So I have very, very fond memories of visiting Roman Road Market every Saturday. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I think I look back and I have this saying, I think East London's the best place in the world with all its kind of quirks and differences. But I think I just love the richness of it in terms of the cultural diversity, and everything's just a bit mishmash and jaggedy and kind of put together, but I love that. I think it has such great character. So for my A-levels, I did English literature and then I dropped it after the first year. I did government and politics, psychology and biology. So when I was really, really young, I wanted to be a pop star. I really loved singing and putting on little shows and performances with my sister and my friend. But then a bit later on, I really wanted to become a clinical psychologist. And that led me to going on to study psychology at university. So I wanted to be a clinical psychologist for a few reasons. Number one, I'm really, really committed to supporting other people. And I think when I think about mental health, it was and it still is an area which is very, very underfunded. There's not that much resource that goes into it. And I think if you're struggling perhaps with your mental health, it can have such a significant impact on loads of different areas of your life. So I really wanted to kind of contribute and support people who needed support with their mental health. Yeah, so I took a year out before I went to university, really because I felt like I wasn't quite ready to go to university yet. Taking a gap year is a kind of thing that some people do. My older sister had taken a gap year, so I was kind of inspired to take a year out before university. During that year, I worked for the first half to save up some money. So I worked in a clothes shop and I also worked for a charity supporting children with disabilities. So I did that for the first half of the gap year to save up, and then after that I did a bit of travelling. So I went to Bangladesh with my friend from primary school and her daughter. That was a really, really incredible experience. I went to Japan. My mum's from Japan and I've got a lot of family in Japan, so I got to see them. And I went to Sri Lanka for 5 weeks, and that was for a mental health placement, so linking to that interest in psychology. So I learned a lot. It was really, really great, varied experience during my gap year. So my advice to someone wanting to take a year out would be have a bit of an idea around what you might want to do during that year. I think it's a really great opportunity. You've got that year where you can kind of do anything you want. It's a great opportunity and a step before you go to university if that's something that you decide to do. So be kind of thoughtful, put some thought into how you want to spend your time. Is that working, so getting some work experience? Is that learning a new skill, taking up a course, doing some traveling, spending time with loved ones and families, nurturing those relationships? So I think really reflect on and think about what it is you want to do. When you come to the end of that year, what do you want to look back and how do you want to feel when you look back, what you want to have done, and use that as a bit of a guide towards shaping that year, because a year goes really, really quickly. So I went to university in London, so I stayed in London. I went to King's College and I studied psychology. I really enjoyed university. It was an interesting experience because I think before that, when going to primary school, secondary school and sixth form, you're just surrounded by other people who grew up in London or like live in London. Whereas at university, you have people from all across the country coming to that university, but also international students from different countries coming to the university. So it's a really nice way to get to kind of meet different people and hear about different people's experiences and backgrounds. I really enjoyed university, obviously for like the educational side and learning stuff. So I was studying psychology, which was and still is an area which I'm so interested in and passionate about. So I was able to learn about that and dig in deeper to what I'd learned during my A-levels studying it. But also it's like that whole university experience as well. You know, the learning is just one part of university. There's so much more to it. So it's the societies, the nights out, the people that you meet, all the extra kind of curricular opportunities and engagements that you can kind of do. So yeah, I really liked my experience as a whole. So I started thinking about next steps. Actually, I think I was always thinking about next steps when I joined university. And actually, initially when I went into university, I was really determined to become a clinical psychologist. So what that would have meant is studying a 3-year psychology degree and then going on and doing potentially a master's and then a 3-year doctorate course after that. So a very long process. But I went into university and I remember in my personal statement, it was like, I'm going to be a clinical psychologist and this is how the degree will help me and so on. And I think 90% of people who study psychology at undergrad have this dream and ambition. But yeah, after I started the psychology degree, I very quickly learned that because it was so varied and there were so many different modules, I very quickly learned that psychology is absolutely everywhere. It's in all different areas of society and it can be applicable in loads of different jobs and loads of different industries. So that led me to be a bit more open-minded with what I could go on to next, and what more I could do with psychology apart from the clinical route. I realised that the clinical route perhaps wasn't really for me, and I actually learned that during my gap year on the mental health placement. I think for me, I'm someone who really takes on people's issues and struggles, and I think I'd find it really difficult to have that separation between work life and then switch off and home life. So I was just being quite honest with myself and realistic with myself. And then thought, okay, well, what else could I do with my degree? I really like kind of working with people, engaging with individuals. I enjoy, really the people element of it. So I then started applying for internships at the beginning of my second year. So my course was a 3-year course, and I started to apply for different internships. So yeah, applied for internships in my second year. At the end of my second year, did a 9-week internship in human resources. And then on my last day, they gave me the offer to come back the following year after I graduated to complete the graduate scheme. So the HR Human Resources graduate programme, so it was a 2-year programme and I had experience in 4 different teams. So I spent 6 months in 4 different teams. So I basically, with a lot of different graduate programmes and schemes, you can move around the department that you're placed in, and you can have that experience in different teams, which I think is such a great thing about graduate programmes. Instead of just going immediately into a job where you're like, oh, I might be in this job for 1 year, 2 years. With this graduate scheme, it's set up in a way that you can have that experience and that holistic experience around the department, to then actually be able to understand what are my skills, what do I enjoy, what do I not enjoy, to then make that decision for me at the end of the 2 years around what would I want to go into next. Is there any area that I've been in or any team that I've been in that actually I really enjoyed? I would like to kind of take my next step there after the graduate scheme. So it was a 2-year programme. Alongside that, I was also doing my master's degree. So I kind of needed to start working, but I also wanted to continue studying. So I did my master's, again, in something quite different. So I did my master's in corporate responsibility and sustainability. That was motivated by my kind of belief in the importance of companies playing a positive role in society. So that's why I studied that master's. So I did that alongside the graduate scheme. So they were both 2 years, so it worked quite nicely together. So after I finished the graduate scheme, which was 2 years, I then I stayed within human resources and moved into the wellbeing team. So I was a global wellbeing manager. So a wellbeing manager focuses on the well-being, so the health and well-being, whether that be physical health, mental health, your social wealth, your financial well-being. It focuses on the well-being and the health of employees. This was an interesting time because it was during the pandemic, and because it was a global role, I had to think not only about how the UK was or where the UK was in terms of the pandemic, but I also had to think about where America was and where India was and where all our different locations were with how they were in terms of the pandemic, because we know that different countries were at different stages and different waves during that period. I felt like a lot of the time we had to be quite reactive and kind of think on our toes. And then I did that for a year and then decided I wanted to change. I still wanted to hold on to some of that psychology. And I was scrolling on our jobs board at work, and I came across this behavioural finance role. So I applied for it, and then I got that role, and I've been in behavioural finance role for the past 2 years. So with my role as a behavioural finance specialist, this involves me thinking about how clients, and when I say clients, this is high net worth individuals, who is thinking about how clients are thinking and feeling about their money. So behavioural finance kind of humanizes investing and humanizes finances, and it really encourages our wealth managers. So wealth managers are those individuals who are looking after that relationship with clients. And it really helps the wealth managers to think about how their clients are thinking and feeling in terms of their finances and their investments. Yeah, so my podcast is called That's My Name. I launched it during the pandemic, which I think a lot of people launched podcasts during the pandemic. So yeah, just over 2 years ago, I launched that. And it focuses on showcasing people's name-related stories. So as we know, everyone has at least one name. And people have different experiences with their names, whether that's been a name that's always mispronounced, or a name that they've changed and chosen for themselves, or a name that has a lot of meaning behind it. And also, if we think about it from the cultural perspective, loads of different countries and cultures have these traditions around naming. So the podcast brings to life these different stories and creates a platform for people to come on and share their experiences and share their name stories. And so you can find the podcast on all the major platforms, so Spotify. We've also got the video versions on Spotify as well. And my Instagram is at that'smyname_pod. I've had different people along my journey who have played a really, really positive role in shaping who I am as an individual. And if I can kind of give a bit of that to someone, then I'm always happy to do that. If I could go back to when I was younger and give myself some advice, I would say, number one, be open-minded. I think sometimes I've pigeonholed myself a bit into, okay, you can only do this sort of role because this is your past experience. But actually, I wish I'd been a bit more open-minded at times and been a bit braver with the types of opportunities that I put myself forward for at a younger age. I think that would have definitely helped me get ahead a bit more. And my second piece of advice would be utilize the people around you. and really try and build those different connections with all the different people that you meet along your way. Build those connections, keep those connections, and think about how those people might be able to play a positive role in your next steps.